Hi, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my craft room. Today is a new Whimsy Stamps release day, so you know what that means. I got to show you some of the fun new products. I have the Revealers 3 die set, this UFWhoa clear stamp set, and some really awesome slimline paper called the Nebula paper pack. And I've stamped and fussy cut out this little concerned looking alien. I colored him in using my Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers. I did cut around the alien instead of around the kind of UFO top like window of his spaceship because I decided to cut it out using acetate. I just took the extra pieces I had from cutting around my alien and used a piece of purple tape to keep it in place on a piece of acetate and just cut around it. So it had the same shape. And there you can see I've just used some double-sided sticky tape to glue those together. And I have my little loop-de-loo die cut out of some white cardstock. And I have that beautiful background already amazing because of the paper pack. I'm going to pop up my alien. I put little foam squares anywhere where they wouldn't be seen. So obviously I didn't want to put them anywhere underneath the acetate that wasn't covered by the alien. And I'm just playing with my layout here to figure out how I want my alien to be zooming by. Again, looking very concerned. I'm using some wet glue behind my little loop-de-loop revealer die cut here and placing that down to the right of my alien like he's zooming. He's trying to get out of there real quick. And you know that because of the sentiment I'm going to put on in just a minute. So I trimmed off any excess of that white cardstock and my card is basically done. We're just going to add some small details here. Now the Whimsy Stamps Slimline paper pack is just slightly, and I mean slightly larger than 3.5 by 8.5. So if you want it to fit perfectly on a slimline scored background of or card base, I should say, you want to make sure you trim that down or it will be a little big. It's not a big deal having it a little bit bigger, but if you want to make sure it fits perfectly in the corners of your card base, just trim it down. So now I have one of my comic book bubbles from my die set here, and I'm just trying to figure out what sentiment I'm going to use. So I die cut one of my bubbles and I'm stamping I want to believe, but it's not like believe in aliens. It's believe like I need to get up out of here. So I just absolutely love this sentiment. I think it's so funny. So I'm going to pop that up so it's on the same kind of level as my alien here and just putting that like he's getting out of here real quick. So now I want to add a little bit of fun and embellishment. I have these really cute clay stars in my stash, and I thought the colors went really well with the background of my Nebula kind of galaxy looking paper here. So I'm using a jewel picker and my wet glue to glue those down. And then I also am going to bring out my new pops of color. It's glitter Snowflake. It's beautiful. And I'm just adding some clear glitter onto his neckline, the lights, and then around my little loop-de-loop revealer die cut. And once that's done, I'm going to put it onto a card base because I'm silly and did things that could smear first, but it dries a little bit before I get my card base out. And to do that, I just took a piece of navy blue paper. It was 8.5 by 11. I trimmed it down to be 8.5 by 7 and then scored at 3.5. So it's 8.5 by 3.5 like I talked about earlier. I'm using some wet glue and just adhering those down, doing my very best not to smear any of my pops of color or my stars that I glued down. I'm just going to use a bone folder to help really kind of crisp up that score, and there is our first card. Now my second card, I'm going to do more of an A2 size. So I have a top folding A2 card base in white. I have this other fun spirally galaxy print from that Nebula paper pack. I'm also going to bring out a sheet of kind of corally pink from one of my scrapbook.com packs of paper, my smooth cardstock packs, and I'm going to trim off 1/2 inch off of one of the sides. So I wanted to have 1/4 inch of white showing from both sides, and then I'm going to cut off a I want to say an inch, but that's not true because it starts off at 3.5. So I'm cutting off 1/4 of an inch. So it is, my card width is 4 1/4. My coral paper is 3 3/4. And now my nebula paper is 3 1/4 inch wide. I hope that made sense. Basically, there's 1/4 inch coming in from each side. So you would need to trim off 1/2 inch intervals, except for the slimline because it's already 3.5. That's only 1/4 inch. I hope that made sense. If you're like, Lauren, that made 0 sense, just leave a comment and I can definitely explain it probably better not using my words, apparently. So now I wanted to add a little bit of fun to my coral paper. I brought out my Oxide and Seedless preserves and I just kind of colored up the edges so it matched that pink and purple look on my nebula paper. I'm also going to bring out my splatter box and some blue silk, which is a splatter, and I'm just splattering as much as I can along the edges on both sides, and once that is dry I can start layering everything together. So my coral paper is going to be glued down to my card base just using some wet glue, and I'm gluing that to the center of my card base. So hopefully this will make a lot more sense now. So my card base is 4 1/4 and my coral paper is 3 3/4. So when I glue it to the center, there is 1/4 inch on both sides. And now I'm going to adhere my nebula paper, but I want to pop this up just for some dimension. And this is trimmed to 3 1/4 because I want it to be 1/2 inch smaller than my coral paper, but the slimline paper pack is 3.5 inches, so you're only going to trim off 1/4 inch for it to all fit. And I hope that math and geometry made sense. Again, you can leave me a comment if you have any questions. And I'm adhering this to the center of my card base again with that foam tape, and you can see I have just some fun look peeking out the sides of my already fun paper. I have another little loop-de-loop revealer die cut here from the Revealers 3 die set, cut out in white, and I want it to come from the bottom right-hand corner. Like, again, I'm using that same alien because I just love his very concerned face. Like he's, flying through space here, just trying to get where he needs to go. He doesn't have time. He just needs to get where he needs to go. And once it's glued down, I'm going to use my scissors to trim off the excess. And there is a little kind of piece overhanging onto the pink paper or the coral paper and my card base. So I'm just going to cut an extra little foam piece here just to help stabilize that little piece. I don't want it to get ripped off. So now that that is done, I'm going to go ahead and stamp and color out my alien, and here he is stamped. And this is for both of my aliens. I stamped him with ink on 3 Blackout ink on some super smooth cardstock that's perfect for alcohol marker blending, and I'm going to trim around him just like I did my other one, again cutting off the glass top or the window top to create my own out of acetate. I'm going to just use that same double-sided sticky tape to glue those two together, and I'm going to bring out my foam squares again, layering foam squares behind the alien and the spaceship to pop him up. Once everything is adhered, I'm going to peel off all those release papers and glue him down to the center. I love that his head lines up with that spiral background in the back. And now for my sentiment, I'm using UFWhoa, you're old. And I'm just using wet glue to glue these down. And this particular comic bubble is more of like a thought bubble. So I have 2 little circles and 1 big circle. And I'm just working them so that way they go into like they're coming out of his head. Like he's, again, very concerned that you have aged and is trying to get out of there. Sounds like a really bad date with this alien. Okay, so now we're going to put some of those clay stars on again using my jewel picker, and I'm going to use wet glue to adhere those down. I'm bringing out my pops of color in that glitter snowflake again because it's my new favorite. It's just so pretty. And I'm going to do very similar to what I did before, but I wanted to add some dots of that sparkle glitter just in various spots around the card. And then I will put some on the neckline and the lights again and kind of the tailpipes, I don't know, the back pipe thingies of my spacecraft, and then along my revealer die cut. And here is the final card. I really love this one and the fun colors. Let's bring out my Slimline card so you can see both here. And then I'm gonna flash over to some better photos where you can see some nice close-ups. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I hope you'll click that like button. If you want to know what I use, check out the description. There's a list of all of my supplies. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new, I hope I've inspired you to subscribe. Thanks again and have a wonderful day.